so that teachers can actually meet those 30 points. Now, the reason we need to be doing that is because ultimately the learners are the key purpose of teachers being and education departments being. And when we start to consider that, when we go back to my original 5 little points, you can see that when we're talking about compliance, it's way down in the corner here. It does have an impact on learner outcomes. There is no doubt about the fact that having bums on seats and knowing that they're there, etc., 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 does lead to better outcomes. But the level of outcome that's possible, although it's quite easy for a teacher to implement, the learner outcomes are limited. But if you look to the whole notion where I started off with, right in the top right-hand corner where we've got content integration, notice that's where the greatest impact comes for learners. But notice also how difficult it is for teachers to implement. And I think we need to keep this picture in mind, because what we're able to see from this is that sometimes we put the cart before the horse. We think we can jump all the way up to the top there, but we actually have to walk step by step by step in order to achieve where we're going. So I'd like to just leave you with the choice. Are we going to keep putting the cart before the horse, or are we going to do it properly? Thank you very much.
Let's give Michael Goodman a round of applause. The cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart. Let me do what he has just said. How many educators do we have in here? I won't use the word teachers, I will use the word educators. All right. Goodman has been talking about teacher training and development. There are some offers that MOTSE has organized at the registration point for free online trainings. So all teachers, all educators, before you go, just see the ladies that are doing registration there. They are free online trainings, nice envelopes that MOTSE has organized for you. So there's something to start on in terms of teacher development. Doc, is that not good enough to give a clap? Thank you very much. Right, our next session is a panel discussion. May I call upon my colleague, MOTSE Mufuleni, to come forward and introduce the next session for me.
Maybe we should have changed Mike's scarf and get him a red scarf. You know why, eh? You know the guys that wear red berets and red stuff? They're very revolutionary. They upset the status quo. Eh? Maybe you must dye that one into red. But what was beautiful about this presentation, though, it's exactly what we're about. It's about thinking. Because this room is full of academics. And I think it must be fair of us, as the chief moderator here, at some stage, even if it's 5-10 minutes before we go to tea, and we test each other's thoughts around some of these things. Up to you, you're the boss. The next discussion is really about looking at, it takes us now to the higher education phase, also then takes us into the school-built environment. Michael is correct, because you can't put technologies in schools that are in mud classroom environments. So what we've now done, we then invited the company that works with the Department of Education in the country, that manages the ASIDI program. They'll talk about it in their presentation. Because they can also talk to us about what do we do as they design these schools-built environments, and how do we as technologists and people who are in the education content environment begin to move with the current thinking. So that's the second speaker. And then we've invited Nemisa to then talk about how then do we then collaborate around the issue of digital schools. What should the private sector be doing to plug on existing initiatives of putting in place digital schools for learners, for teachers? In fact, I like what Dinah said. Let's not forget the parent in the conversation. So, without wasting time, let me then invite Sharon Ntlangwini, who is the SG of the association that looks after all student accommodations in all the universities of South Africa. Can I please invite her on stage as we put a round of applause for her? Then we invite Reverend Mwanda Makandula, who is from BTKM and they are managing the school-built environment. And I think, Pramanda, you're having a shared presentation?
Yes, he will do the
You will then do the presentation, okay. Let's put a round of applause for the BTKM guys. And then invite the director of Nemisa eSchools Collab, Ms. Gumbo. Thank you very much, ma'am. Welcome on stage. Can I ask the guys to bring us some microphones? Whilst they do that, I want to acknowledge the MD of Adapt IT as well as the councillor from ICASA, Ms. Pale Sakadi and Mr. Lukolo Moshe. Welcome, colleagues, and it's good to have you here. Good enough? So I'm going to be flexible, colleagues. I'm going to leave it to you. We must just go to tea, just have that in mind, at some stage, before lunch. So I'm going to give it to you. I want to take away too much formalizing it of the conversation. And I don't know who would like to set the tone and talk first amongst yourselves. Ms. Gumbo, do you want to come and have a conversation? Or you want to be seated down?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm sitting down.
Thank you very much. We'll then start with you.
My name is Sibukele Gumbo. I'm the director for the eSkills Collab based in the Eastern Cape, and we're at Walter Sisulu University. Just for a bit more clarity, the Nemisa is an SOE, and it's funded by the Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services. But the reach of our work does involve a bit of the private sector, say working with SMMEs, and with government and with education. And I was very interested when I saw Dr. Shref put the eSkills course, which is accredited, which is done in collaboration with us. So in our case, it will be quite a talk that involves working with different players in making education work.
Thank you very much. Over to you, please, sir.
Hello, my name is Reverend Mondi.
So you're going to open in prayer for us.
My name is Francois Latte. I'm the Chief Architect for ACIDI, the Accelerated Schools Infrastructure Development Initiative for the DBE. And as that, we are tasked with the development and the replacement of the mud structures that you are talking about. So that's what we're busy doing in the Eastern Cape and across the country.
Perfect. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shirani, and I represent an association that basically represents all officials, housing officials in universities. We have about 16 members, which are universities and TVET colleges. And we are a chapter, by the way, of an international association, which is based in America. So what we basically do is to, we see to all matters, basically, and interests of student housing officials, which also includes students. And as we know, the residences within institutions are basically an extension of the classroom. So we have the notion that education also, or learning also, happens in residences.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the elephant in the room. I think Michael kind of set the tone around the issue of the school environment. Do you mind just sharing with us what is actually happening in the school's design infrastructure environment? How does this conversation really links to what is happening so that we make sure that we travel the journey together?
I think that, at the moment, I initially was asked to present the classroom of the future.
Yes.
Where at the moment we are very much involved in the classroom of the past, and the classroom as we know it, and where technology does not play a big role. And slowly but surely we're seeing technology becoming important. I think in a classroom and an infrastructure level, what is important is to understand what is required of the infrastructure. And I like to always think of it as a place of where plants, the requirements are the same as plants. They need, kids need food in their stomachs. They need to be fed. They need to have the energy to learn. They need good air. They need ventilation in the classroom. The classroom's windows need to be openable. They need to be closable so that cold air doesn't come in. Classrooms needs to be insulated against the cold. And all those things are practical applications, light, for instance, security, and then you get to a level where you can actually implement technology that is that's going to take the kids into the future, and so that's what we're doing. We're trying to as much as possible, and really there's a lot of people putting lots of effort into this.